feels a little cringe to say this bluntly, but video games are probably my favorite thing. Full stop. Going back to being a kid, being too terminally awkward to socialize and too stupid and detached to focus on school, video games were the best. A perfect escape from real-world responsibilities. Whether it's an open world with fleshed-out characters to immerse myself in, or a challenging game to just grind away at for hours and hours, improving my skills little by little to reach the next rank or overcome an impossible boss. It's difficult to put into words. They're just great. Even as my life gets bigger and more serious, I still hold on tight to this hobby. But it's different now. My relationship with gaming isn't quite the same. I got big boy responsibilities and existential dread to reckon with. I gotta be tuned into the world around me and engage in it. Gotta take care of my physical and mental health while also trying to maintain friendships, enjoy new hobbies, and of course, making sure I'm not sinking financially. But that isn't to say I don't have time for video games. I'm pretty blessed to have a light enough schedule and a carefree lifestyle, making it pretty easy to create free time to do with as I please, which is usually, of course, gaming. But what's causing me to feel really bummed out isn't that I don't have time for video games, it's that I don't enjoy them as much as I used to. They aren't as fun anymore. Now, I do want to be clear. I am getting older. It's to be expected that I'd grow out of old hobbies. After all, there's only so many genres out there, so many ways to innovate, and evidently it's gonna be more and more difficult for new games to capture the sense of wonder that I had as a child. Not to mention, I'm at the age when my parents were already married with 2 children and a house, while I'm sitting around in my tiny apartment playing Puyo Puyo while auto-playing YouTube video essays, which is, who cares? That's whatever, it's fine. That's growing up, am I right? The key difference that I've noticed between games today and the ones that I played as a kid is that modern games are fucking long, and there are so many of them, and it's just impossibly overwhelming. I remember first playing some of these huge, expansive video games like Skyrim and Grand Theft Auto 5 and being so enamored by how huge the world was and the sense of freedom that came from it. Like, you can do anything in these worlds, and the game just goes on forever. To this day, there are tons of people that go back to play both of these games over 10 years later. And I know these aren't all new players. A lot of them have been sinking time into just one of these huge games for over a decade now. Games with the size and scope of Skyrim used to be a rarity, but that is absolutely not the case anymore. Every year there's more of these gigantic AAA titles that are just loaded with content. Take a look at your average game of the year. It probably has a 30-plus hour campaign with impressive, fully voiced cutscenes, post-game content that adds an extra 30 hours or more, and probably a bunch of DLC released over the course of the next few years that adds another 30 to 100 to 200 hours of content. This is the rule for AAA games rather than the exception. And usually they're designed to be played up to infinity, just forever. We're just gonna keep loading it up with content. You can just keep playing it. The fun never ends. Now that's just in reference to single-player games. Multiplayer games have their own way of lasting an eternity. Just 10 years ago, you might have expected an online game to have some kind of leaderboard, maybe a ranking system to give you incentive to keep playing if you wanted. And if they didn't have these things, it wasn't weird because you're there for the gameplay more than anything. But modern games don't rely on simple incentives like this. They've cranked up their tactics to 11. The most successful multiplayer games usually have a season pass released every 1 or 2 months with a bunch of in-game currency and rare cosmetics, daily missions to reward you for logging in every single day, and if they're really after your attention, probably a reward system that gives even bigger incentives if you log in every single day for a week or every single day for a month, so that you basically treat the game as a full-time job. Got a wedding to go to today and a family event you can't miss? Well, I hope you wake up early to hop on Pokemon Unite because you don't want to miss out on those incredibly important Eos coins that are only available today. And man, that new greeting skin is really important. You need it. You need to log on today. It's important every day. And yeah, it's exploitative. It's not like the rewards you get for logging in every day are so valuable, and everyone knows that. But if it only takes a couple minutes to get them and you're not doing anything anyway, you might as well hop on for about 20 minutes or so to collect your daily items. Only now that you've logged in for 20 minutes, the game's already on, you're on a winning streak, might as well keep playing, you've got nothing important going on today. Next thing you know, an entire week has passed, and you probably spent an average of over 3 hours a day on a game you don't even like that much anymore. You could have called up a friend, you could have taken up a new hobby, hell, at the very least, you could have played a different game, a better game. There's dozens out there. Dozens of games on your backlog that you really want to get to. Some of them are only like 3 hours long. Yet you chose to dump your time into a game that you barely get any joy out of anymore. What the fuck is wrong with you? Now, when I say you, I obviously mean me. I'm talking about me. But you fucking clicked on the video and you're still watching, so I know for a fact we aren't that different. Now, here's the thing. This kind of game design is obviously intentional and obviously works. All of the most popular multiplayer games utilize these extensive battle passes and daily reward systems. Every big game of the year contender is usually one of these AAA big budget 100-hour time sinks. And frankly, it's kind of hard to complain about. I kind of feel like it's wrong to be angry about this. Games are expensive, right? They're up to $70 now at launch, and as consumers, we want to be satisfied with our purchase, and more hours of engaging content should be celebrated. Now, you could make an extremely cynical case that modern games are meticulously designed to stretch out content beyond what's necessary, dirty video game developers milking the game for every ounce of content, adding these daily missions to keep us addicted and convince us that the game is better than it is. But I don't know if I think that's really fair. It's hardly the developers' fault for giving us what we want. A lot of it is us, gamers. People throw a fit when games aren't littered with content. Here's an example to sort of ground this in. I'm a big Mortal Kombat guy. I remember MK11 dropping, and gamers raged over how fucking grindy the reward system was. The game was just littered with loot boxes full of concept art and little drops of currency. The Towers of Time were this extremely grindy process where you'd just play for an hour to unlock a new knife for Kano. So many of the best skins and brutalities required actual days of grinding. It felt like such a drag to earn rewards, and the developers knew this, because at launch, they added a feature that allows you to use AI to unlock rewards without actually playing. The game actively incentivized leaving on your console during all hours of the day to grind out rewards.
If you have a turbo button, and you're just like turboing through, and then you beat the tower, you collect its rewards, and you go back down, the AI picks the tower, it then picks Scorpion, it picks Scorpion's number 1, and it just plays through.
Holy shit.
I let this grind for 12 to 13 hours the entire time it was up.
Oh my god.
I got 7,000 souls out of it. I was up to $2.5 million.
Holy shit.
It was incredible. So,
this was one of the first times I remember people complaining that console games were all becoming mobile gamified. So, Mortal Kombat 1 comes out, which is the sequel to Mortal Kombat 11, obviously, and it cuts back on a lot of this stuff. Customization for characters is much more streamlined. Brutalities are all unlocked from the get-go, and it's much quicker and easier to get all the cosmetics for every character without resorting to a fucking AI stand-in. And people hated that even more. Now the game is boring and unengaging. Now granted, it could have something to do with MK1 just being a worse game with worse gameplay, but that doesn't seem to be the common opinion. People just got bored. Because people get bored if they aren't constantly unlocking shit. It turns out gamers actually prefer the highly dopamine-driven reward systems. It isn't just important that the gameplay is clean and the game is well balanced and well designed. Just give players constant, tiny little rewards every second so that our ape brain doesn't lose interest and move on to something else. Back in 2021, Metroid Dread came out. This was easily my favorite game of that year. Just 8 hours long to 100% the game, and I loved every second of it. The movement in the game is so crisp, the atmosphere is immaculate, and it offers some of the best platforming puzzles for completionists. And it's all tied together with this extremely, just incredibly satisfying end to Samus's story, and one of the best boss fights in any video game. Oh my god, I swear to god, it's so good. For the most part, this was kind of the consensus for Dread. It was mostly critically successful. Except for the thousands who complained about the game being way too short. There was this raging debate online about whether or not the players were getting scammed for paying full price for a game so short. Nintendo is scamming their audience. Metroid fans are such cucks if they think this is acceptable. So whatever. I kinda get it. Do you want to pay $60 for a 100-hour game with virtually infinite content, or $60 for a 10-hour game with just the right amount of content? I can see a decent argument that Dread should have been a $30 to $40 purchase at launch. It is really short, shockingly short for this era of video games. But man, I wish developers were more willing to approach games this way, because in the year of our Lord 2024, games that are short and sweet are a blessing. The discourse surrounding Metroid Dread made me realize just how many people view video game length as a virtue in itself. And I do understand the appeal of a long, drawn-out, enthralling experience that you can get lost in, but I resent the mindset that this automatically makes short and compact video games worse. A quick and engaging game can often be way more memorable and replayable, and when looking at the big picture of where we currently are in the gaming landscape, yeah, there's enough lengthy games to keep you busy. Even on the subject of pricing, most AAA games will go on sale for over 70% off in a matter of a year or two. Metal Gear Solid 5 has been out for nearly a decade and has aged incredibly well. I got it for just $250 on the PS Store and well over 100 hours of fun out of it. Skyrim, Dark Souls 3, The Last of Us, all these titans of the industry regularly go on sale for less than $10. And these days, I got my PS Plus subscription giving me a handful of free games every month, and these aren't just garbage. This month, I got Dead Space and Doki Doki Literature Club. Before that, there was Destiny 2, DMC 5, fucking Lego Star Wars, the complete saga. These are quality, highly produced, critically beloved games, and they just hand them away. Not to mention Fortnite, the new Call of Duty, and so many other popular games right now that are just straight up free. And guess what? I've yet to play almost any of these, because I'm too damn busy grinding away at all the other shit that's out there. So I imagine you can understand why I really appreciate Metroid Dread and other video games similar to it. I could complete Metroid Dread, Strider, Inside, and The Messenger in less time than it would take to get through Elden Ring. That's not to say Elden Ring is bad. I would never say that, guys. Trust me. But my current backlog of games that I already own and would love to play is an extremely long list that is growing faster than it's shrinking, so checking off a handful of these short masterpieces kind of sounds more satisfying than trudging through another massive open world. And yeah, this is the broad issue for me. I said at the very beginning, video games are my favorite thing. I believe them to be the most immersive form of media entertainment out there. The amount of work that goes into them, the stories, the voice acting, the scenery, the music, all married to gameplay and movement. Becoming one with your character, immersing yourself in a unique environment, whether it's for the purpose of reaching a specific goal or just meandering, killing time with some NPCs, going fishing, catching bugs, an escape from the stress of the real world. Video games are interactable works of art, and even to this day, I'm so grateful to be living in the same time period that lets me experience them. Not everybody connects with games in this way, but for myself and many others out there, this is how much we value this hobby. And so I don't play games purely for the sake of it. I want to connect with them on a deep level. I often want to stop and smell the roses, sometimes replay games over and over to figure out why exactly they click so well. I like to experience a variety of genres and styles, fighting games, RPGs, platformers, pretty much anything made by Nintendo, if I'm being honest. But with every year that passes, There's like 20 more popular games released that I know are probably great, but for every game I do play, there's another 10 that I won't be able to play in this lifetime. And I hate that I have to make that decision. I just can't help but lament that we simply don't have the time, and I don't have the patience or the discipline to experience everything I want to. And shit, sometimes I do choose to play another 200 hours of Street Fighter 6, or do a 9th playthrough of Skyrim instead of finally playing Ghost of Tsushima. And I don't think that's inherently wrong. I don't think that's intrinsically a bad thing. I'd say the worst thing is when I'm just looking through all the games I do own and haven't played and just decide to get on my phone and scroll through TikTok instead because the analysis paralysis of deciding which one to play in this moment is just too overwhelming, so I just waste my time instead. So wah, poor me, my life is so hard. Like I said earlier, this is just something I need to grapple with, and not so much a cutting-edge critique. Really, I'm just a nerd. I want to go back and experience all the classics that I still haven't, and play every hot game that's come out in the past few years. I'd love to have an encyclopedic knowledge of the entire industry and be the expert that friends can go to who knows exactly what the best things out there are, and I'll give you a 30-minute explanation of why this game's better than that game. But that's just not realistic, and I don't think much of anyone can be that authority these days. I hardly understand how video game critics can even exist. It's not like movies where it only takes an hour or two to experience in its entirety. Games are coming out so fast, and their current length, I mean, there's just no way for anyone to get through all of them without making it a full-time commitment. And even then, I don't think you can truly experience and enjoy a game by just rushing through it. It seems clear that being sincerely literate in gaming, in the medium as a whole, and experiencing all of the greatest games out there, just, it isn't really an option these days. It's not doable. It's Jover, guys. I'm sorry. However, that is quite enough pessimism. It's obviously not all bad. One thing that I do find genuinely really cool about this era that we're living in is that the amount of gaming subcultures is just enormous. It's kind of similar to music. Like, music is so big and so broad and has been explored for so many generations that it's literally impossible to be an expert in the art form as a whole. Most people just find a genre or two that resonates with them, and that's their thing, and they like it. Or you like a variety of genres, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you just enjoy it for what it is, but you're not an expert in any particular genre, and that's fine. Now, gaming hasn't been around nearly as long, but the landscape has progressed so quickly that being a gamer has a similarly broad meaning now. The gaming community is hardly a thing. Instead, now you go on Reddit, YouTube, Discord, Twitch, Twitter, and there's just hundreds of communities of hundreds and thousands of people dedicated to just one game, or one type of game. This is partly what kept me playing Pokemon Unite for so long. That game is just a bag of ass. It's so bad. Even as I get distance from it, I'm like, holy shit, how did I waste hundreds of hours of my life on that? And the answer isn't that mysterious. It had the daily missions and the constant updates to keep me engaged. The core gameplay was fine, it was pretty good. It had Pokemon, which was a huge benefit, and the community was pretty great. Even today, there's still a dedicated group of streamers and content creators, a decent subreddit, plenty of Discord servers, excitement for every patch update. It's cool. It's pretty sick that we're able to interact online in such large communities over such niche interests. Right now, I've been dumping tons of hours into Street Fighter 6. It's been my life over the past few months, and oh my god, I love it so much. It's just, first off, the game's just really good. The adventure mode is way better than it has any right to be. The characters, the sound effects, the online functionality, it's all so good, and it's very approachable for new players, which is pretty rare for fighting games. But it still has tons of complex systems and unique character interactions for those who want to reach the top. It has a subreddit just full of people sharing clips and offering advice and giving their thoughts on the new updates. Fighting games in general just have these really great communities right now. It's honestly awesome to see. The big content creators like Maximilian and Justin Wong are just so dedicated to the genre and totally non-toxic. and you don't get a sense that there's beef between different communities. Like, you don't often hear, Guilty Gear is better than Street Fighter, and Tekken sucks. It's just, I like Street Fighter, I like KOF, and everybody just, they have their thing, and they like their thing. I'm sure there's some elitism here and there, but for the most part, that doesn't seem to be how most people even talk these days. In general, elitism among gamers seems just surprisingly out of fashion these days. Like, think about the console wars. God, the 360 versus PS3 versus Wii, that was such an obnoxiously contentious and exhausting time to be part of the gaming sphere. Console wars were always so lame. But barely anyone does that shit anymore. You play Nintendo? Cool, I'm more of a PC guy. Oh, I prefer PlayStation. It's user-friendly, I love the exclusives. You rarely hear attitudes of people saying their console is just objectively better. But, like anything else, this gives me equal parts a feeling of gratitude, as well as a sense of longing. It's really cool how many amazing gaming options are out there and how easy it is to find and interact with different communities of people with this same shared interest. But I can't help from remembering a time when a new game released and everybody was talking about it. You had these objective cult classics that every gamer worth their salt simply had to play. You get why I draw the comparison between movies and music? Because if you're a die-hard cinema fiend and you find a fellow man of taste out on the street, you can assume that you've both seen a lot of the same stuff. You're likely both fluent in the recent Oscar nominations, you both probably like Tarantino and Scorsese, both of you likely have a post-ironic appreciation for movies like The Room. There is at least somewhat of a consensus around which movies are a must-watch, and it isn't too much of a task to catch up on all of the big stuff. Music, however, doesn't work this way at all. You could fancy yourself a music nerd and run into another one in public and very easily have zero overlap at all. The subcultures are necessary for music. Classic rock fans have totally different interests from hip-hop heads or metal heads. Maybe you both have like a common interest in like the Beatles or Michael Jackson or something, but even that can hardly be assumed. For a long time, I would have considered gaming culture more similar to cinema culture in this regard. Even as recent as 2010, when gaming wasn't quite as mainstream, I think you likely could have found a fellow die-hard gamer and assumed they've played or at least have some foundational knowledge of certain games, like Mario 3, Ocarina of Time, Final Fantasy VII, Halo, all the big stuff. But the industry has blown up so much and expanded so far that a critical consensus of the best stuff out there is quickly dying down. Undoubtedly, I'm sure there are some people out there who still aim to play all the best games that they can and are optimizing their time in such a way to make sure they can keep up with the cultural zeitgeist, but every year, doing all that just sounds like more and more of a drag. Most of us find it a lot easier and more enjoyable to just attach ourselves to a game or two every couple months and devote however many hundreds or thousands of hours we want into it. The devs will give you patch updates and DLC to keep you excited, you'll have your daily missions, and with every new game you start, you also inherit a brand new internet community of like-minded people who enjoy the same thing. This is kind of the core gaming experience now, and I guess I just have to accept all of the good and the bad that comes with that. So yeah, oh, here's a chart I made that I thought could be useful for some people. Okay, so I tried my best here to map the general feelings I experience while playing a new game. I start around here, right, at like we'll say a 30%. I'm excited to embark on this new adventure. This might be the best game I ever played or the biggest piece of dog shit. I don't know. But the sense of trying something new keeps me excited. But then the first few hours of gameplay are a bit of a clunky experience. I'm getting smacked in the face with tutorials, I have to navigate the game's unintuitive menus. I don't really care about these characters yet. The gameplay still isn't quite clicking. But eventually, I start to feel the gameplay loop. Everything falls into place. I understand and enjoy the core mechanics. I'm invested in the story. I like these characters, and I'm just excited to take on these challenges, and I'm overwhelmed by the sense of discovery. This is really fun, and this is where like the peak gaming experience, feeling everything about the game just coursing through my body. This is like the best part. But eventually, usually, hopefully, around the point of beating the game, my enthusiasm peaks and then slowly starts to decline. I've seen just about everything. The quests are starting to get repetitive, the background music isn't hitting the way it used to, and my interest is on a steady downfall, until I decide to move on. Now, because most games never end and can just go on forever with post-game content, I started to use this chart to sort of check in with myself. Am I at this point or this point? Am I still getting substantial, meaningful value out of this product? Or am I just tempted by little daily missions and side quests that aren't offering any meaningful value, but are just making me feel engaged, even though I know I'm not? Every time I start a brand new game, it's become way too easy to drop it after like an hour and be like, that's boring, I don't really care for it. But clearly, I'm just still in this phase, rather than this phase, and if I do give it a few more hours, I know there's a real chance that I'll probably love it. It's just a conversation that I have to have with myself. Right now, I'm having this conversation with Street Fighter. I'm definitely past the point of peak enjoyment, but I'm still getting plenty of fun out of it, and I know there is more stuff I'd like to do. It's not like I'm down here, I'm somewhere around here. But Tekken 8 has been calling my name. I've never been a Tekken guy, but it really interests me. I just know that when I start, I'm going to have to go through the painstaking hours of tutorials and getting my ass kicked online before I start to finally get in the flow of it. And so, do I want to squeeze what little enjoyment I have left for Street Fighter 6, or dive into something new, knowing that if I give it time, it will pay off? One more thing. If much of the feelings I've shared with you, particularly being addicted to games at a very young age, playing games far past the point of enjoyment, lacking the patience to get through boring tutorials and menu navigation, consider getting tested for ADHD. I'm 25. I kind of forgot, or just largely ignored, that I was taking Adderall throughout most of grade school. And I figured, hey, I'm not in school anymore. Who cares? But holy shit, this past year I reached a breaking point of frustration with myself and my inability to self-motivate, and taking medicine again has really helped. And I'm so stupid, right? At one point, I convinced myself that ADD medicine was evil. It's a scam pushed by Big Pharma to suppress the creative minds of children and turn them into slaves for the man, and I don't know, that's a separate conversation. But for me, after realizing what ADD medicine actually does, which I never knew as a kid, what it does is basically regulate a dopamine deficiency. And if you were paying attention to what I said before, gamers really like dopamine. Like, not only is my work and social life and ability to complete mundane tasks a lot better than it used to be, but even on my days off, it's really nice. I don't usually start the day wanting to scroll TikTok for hours or eat junk food all day or play ranked matches in a game that I've already played to death, but all these activities are highly dopaminergic, and it's a lot easier than taking up a brand new hobby or starting a brand new game. Like, bro, ADD medicine improved my gaming life. Are you listening to me right now? How fucking weird is that? Because with the medication, it's just a lot easier to move on from games I don't get meaningful value from, and I'm much more patient when grinding through tutorials and menus and long text boxes. Because with the medicine, I don't need the constant dopamine hit of constant rewards. I'm able to just convince myself it will pay off and commit to a game that isn't fun yet because I know it'll be fun later. So I felt the need to throw that out, because I'm just shocked at how much my life's improved since this self-discovery. And let me be clear, I don't think you should feel guilty at all if you're playing games solely for the purpose of killing time. Maybe you just appreciate the little bit of dopamine release that you get when you boot it up, and that's totally okay. Maybe you are just so immersed in an open world and you have been playing this game for hundreds of hours, but there is more that you want to see. You know you're still getting value out of it, and that's great. Then you should keep playing. You want to keep grinding out ranked matches. You want to see what new heights you can reach, and that's great. Go for it. Do that. But for those of you who want video games to be meaningful, long, artistic experiences that you can reflect on and think about for hours, what are you doing? Why do you keep playing ranked matches in a video game where you're not even trying to improve your skills? Why do you keep booting up games for these daily missions and battle passes, all to unlock a skin for a character that you don't even fucking play? Why do you keep doing that? Why are you doing what is basically the video game equivalent of scrolling TikTok and eating a bag of Doritos? Are you getting value from this? No, you know you're not. Stop treating your favorite hobby like a bag of fucking Doritos. I know that you remember a time when you picked up a game and you weren't even sure if you would like it, but you found yourself so enthralled by everything, so attached to the characters, immersed in the world, that you couldn't stop talking about it for days, weeks, months, years afterwards. There are video games out there that gave you such a transcendent emotional experience that you probably have more positive memories of it than you do of your own childhood best friends. These experiences are real and they matter, and you deserve them. And you know you're not going to get them by playing the same game over and over again that you're already sick of. Put it away. Move on to the next game. Closing thoughts. Gaming is like music now. You all probably have ADHD. We all live in tiny internet communities instead of real life. Street Fighter 6 fucking rules, and Pokemon Unite is the biggest piece of shit. Thank you for your time. Kind of slow. Okay.
I got ulted by slow.
I can't. I'm gonna die.
Oh no! Please.
I hate this. I hate it.